Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the eerie and unsettling world of suburban horror stories. These are true accounts that will send chills down your spine. We often think of suburbs as safe havens, but behind that facade, disturbing things can happen. The stories we're about to share peel back that veneer, revealing the darkness lurking beneath ordinary life. So, settle in, maybe turn down the lights and prepare yourself. We're exploring the unsettling, the unexplained, and the truly terrifying. Sometimes horror isn't confined to abandoned asylums or ancient crypts, it's waiting right next door. The Peterson family, David, Sarah, and their two young children, Emily and Tom, were looking for a fresh start. They had been through a tough year, filled with challenges and setbacks, and were eager to find a place where they could rebuild their lives and create new, happy memories. They found a beautiful two-story colonial on Willow Creek Drive. The house stood proudly with its white facade and dark shutters, exuding a charm that immediately drew them in. The house was older but well-maintained, or so it seemed. The garden was lush and vibrant, with flowers in full bloom, and the exterior showed no signs of neglect. The price was surprisingly reasonable, which David noted but attributed to a motivated seller. The realtor, with a warm smile, handed over the keys, sealing the deal with a sense of optimism. The realtor mentioned the previous owner, Elara Vance, had passed away in the house. She was an elderly woman who had lived there alone for many years. The Petersons didn't think too much of it and closed the deal. They were too excited about their new beginning to dwell on the past. Moving day was filled with laughter and excitement. The children ran through the empty rooms, imagining how they would decorate their new spaces. But that feeling of perfect contentment was not destined to last. The first few weeks were blissful, but soon strange things began to happen. The first odd occurrence was subtle. A wine glass shattered on the floor. Sarah was puzzled, but dismissed it as an accident. David heard a faint scratching sound at night, but dismissed it. He thought it might be a tree branch brushing against the window. Tom started talking about a sad lady in his room. He described her as wearing a long dress and having a sorrowful expression. Emily complained about her room being cold, even on warm nights. The temperature would drop suddenly, sending chills down her spine. Sarah started researching the house's history and found disturbing details about Elara Vance. She discovered that Elara had been a recluse, rarely seen by neighbors. Elara had been a recluse, and her death was listed as undetermined. The circumstances surrounding her demise were shrouded in mystery. The activity in the house escalated, doors slammed, objects flew off shelves, and whispers emanated from the walls. The once peaceful home had turned into a place of fear and uncertainty. One night the family was jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream. It echoed through the halls, leaving them paralyzed with fear. The breaking point came when dark handprints appeared on the wallpaper. They seemed to materialize out of nowhere, marking the walls with an ominous presence. The Petersons fled the house that night. They couldn't bear to stay another moment in a place that had become so terrifying. They contacted a paranormal investigation team who confirmed intense poltergeist activity. The investigators recorded eerie sounds and witnessed objects moving on their own. The Petersons sold the house at a significant loss and moved to a different town. They hoped to leave the haunting memories behind and start anew. The experience left deep scars, and the idyllic suburban dream revealed a terrifying spectral underbelly. The family struggled to find peace, haunted by the events they had endured. Some houses hold more than just memories, they hold on to the sorrow of those who came before. The Petersons learned this the hard way, forever changed by their time at Willow Creek. The summer of 1998 in the sleepy suburban town of Oak Haven was like many before it. Kids rode bikes, lawnmowers hummed, and ice cream trucks made their rounds. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and the distant hum of summer activities. But that comforting illusion of safety was shattered by the disappearance of 8-year-old Sarah Collins. The news spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the community. Sarah was a bright, bubbly girl with a gap-toothed smile. She was well loved by everyone who knew her, always full of energy and curiosity. On the afternoon of July 15th, Sarah was playing outside her home. It was a typical summer day with the sun shining brightly and the neighborhood bustling with activity. Her mother, Linda, was inside preparing dinner. She glanced out the window occasionally, keeping an eye on Sarah as she played. Around 5:30 p.m., Linda called out for Sarah to come in for dinner. There was no response. She called again, louder this time, but still, there was only silence. Linda alerted her husband, Mark, and together they began to search the immediate area, their concern growing with each passing minute. They scoured the neighborhood, calling out Sarah's name, hoping she had simply wandered off to a friend's house or gotten distracted. As dusk settled, panic set in. The once familiar streets now seemed ominous, shadows lengthening as the light faded. They called the police, their voices trembling with fear. The Oak Haven Police Department responded quickly, understanding the urgency of the situation. Officers coordinated a search effort, canvassing the area and questioning neighbors. The community rallied together, determined to find Sarah. Volunteers from the community joined the search. Days turned into weeks, and the initial hope began to wane. There was still no sign of Sarah. The town held vigils, lighting candles and praying for her safe return. The sense of loss was palpable. Prayers were whispered, tears were shed, and the community clung to the hope that Sarah would come back home. Nearly a year later, a group of teenagers found Sarah's backpack in a derelict farmhouse on the outskirts of town. The discovery reignited the investigation. The discovery sent a fresh wave of shock and grief through Oak Haven. The community was once again plunged into sorrow and uncertainty. The police conducted an exhaustive forensic search, hoping to find new leads that could explain what had happened to Sarah, but they found few additional clues. The farmhouse, though eerie and filled with potential, offered little in the way of answers. The backpack seemed to have been deliberately hidden, raising more questions than it answered. The case of Sarah Collins grew cold, relegated to the archives. It became one of Oak Haven's most haunting mysteries. The lack of closure was the most haunting aspect of all. The empty swing set in the yard, the lonely streets at dusk, all served as constant reminders of the little girl who never came home. For the Miller family, Tom, Lisa, and their teenage daughter Chloe moving into the cul-de-sac on Chestnut Lane felt like a dream come true. They had always wanted to live in a peaceful neighborhood where they could build lasting memories and enjoy a sense of community. Their new next-door neighbor, Mr. Henderson, seemed friendly and helpful. He was an elderly man with a warm smile and a welcoming demeanor that put the Millers at ease. He brought the Millers a welcome pie and shared stories about the neighborhood. He talked about the annual block parties, the friendly gatherings, and the sense of camaraderie that defined Chestnut Lane. The first few months were idyllic. The Millers settled into their new home, enjoying the tranquility and the friendly atmosphere. They felt they had found their perfect haven. But then, subtle things started to happen. Little incidents that seemed inconsequential at first, but gradually grew more unsettling. Lisa noticed that Mr. Henderson seemed to know a little too much about their daily schedule. He would comment on their comings and goings with an eerie accuracy that made her uneasy. Chloe started to feel uncomfortable, often catching glimpses of Mr. Henderson watching her. She would see him peering through his curtains, his eyes following her every move. Tom was initially skeptical, but began to notice the unnerving frequency of Mr. Henderson's appearances. He would see him outside at odd hours, always seeming to be around when the Millers were home. One evening, the Millers were discussing plans for a weekend trip. They were excited about the getaway and talked about it over dinner, unaware that someone might be listening. The next morning, Mr. Henderson mentioned their plans, even though they hadn't told him. His knowledge of their private conversation sent chills down their spines. The unease in the Miller household grew palpable. They began to feel like they were living under constant surveillance, their privacy invaded by the very person who had welcomed them so warmly. Chloe reported seeing Mr. Henderson near their property at odd hours. She would catch glimpses of him lurking in the shadows, his presence a constant reminder of their growing fear. The Millers decided to install a security camera system. They hoped that the cameras would provide some peace of mind and perhaps capture evidence of Mr. Henderson's unsettling behavior. The footage showed Mr. Henderson frequently approaching their house, peering into windows and trying door handles. His actions were more invasive than they had imagined. One night, he stood directly beneath Chloe's window, looking up. The sight of him there, in the dead of night, was the final straw for the Millers. Armed with this video evidence, the Millers went to the police. They hoped that the authorities would take their concerns seriously and put an end to their nightmare. The police were initially hesitant, but advised the Millers to keep documenting. They needed more evidence to take definitive action against Mr. Henderson. The situation escalated when Chloe found a small, crudely carved wooden bird on her windowsill. It was a disturbing token, left behind as a sinister message. Tom confronted Mr. Henderson, who issued a veiled threat. The confrontation was tense, and Tom realized that their neighbor was more dangerous than they had thought. The Millers went back to the police, who took more serious action. They began to monitor Mr. Henderson more closely, understanding the gravity of the situation. Mr. Henderson became a ghost, rarely seen outside. His once frequent appearances ceased, and the Millers felt a temporary sense of relief. Eventually, a for sale sign appeared on Mr. Henderson's lawn, and he moved out. The Millers watched as he packed up and left, hoping that their ordeal was finally over. The experience left the Miller family deeply shaken. They had moved to Chestnut Lane seeking peace and security, only to find themselves living a nightmare. The friendly face of their neighbor had hidden a disturbing capacity for intrusion and intimidation. The Millers learned that appearances could be deceiving. The cul-de-sac on Chestnut Lane never felt quite the same again. The lingering unease served as a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most welcoming facades. And there you have it, 3 stories that pull back the curtain on the unsettling realities that can sometimes hide beneath the peaceful veneer of suburban life. These accounts remind us that the strange, dark, and mysterious can manifest anywhere, even in places designed for comfort and security. The experiences of the Petersons, the Collins family, and the Millers are stark reminders of the unseen vulnerabilities that can exist around us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling content. Share your thoughts or any suburban horror stories you know in the comments below. Stay safe, look out for one another, and always trust your instincts. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.